If I was being accused of something like this, I would scream to the top of my lungs, I ain't do this shit. I didn't do it. I have never made a good decision when my dick has made the decision. Whatever happened to getting yourself a call girl or getting an escort service? I'll never forget my friend explaining to me how sometimes she would just go along with situations like in a man's home or something like that because she never knew how the man was going to react. Now just imagine that man is 6'4", 260 pounds. She was like, well, I don't want to be choked. And he was like, well, yeah, you do. You want to be choked. And there are text messages where there was a sexual encounter and she texted him, I don't know how I feel about this. I asked you to use a condom and I asked you not to put it there. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all read up on text messages. I'm not going to get into that. It is too graphic. And we try to be somewhat of a journalistic type show, even though we get messy.
Yeah.
What I can say, because I can't speak to his innocence or guilt, I wasn't there.
Yes.
What I can say is, this is all a bad luck.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. And I haven't gotten into, you said that there was some bad advice given by the defense attorney.
Yeah.
So I haven't, I'm interested to see what that is, but I did see his vehement denial.
That was the bad advice. The way that he denied it, and if you watch it, it's just like, oh, bro, like you shouldn't have done that. Like deny it, but I mean, I guess in a way, if you didn't do it, I know if I was being accused of something like this, and ladies and gentlemen, I would never do anything like this. If I was being accused of something like this, I would scream to the top of my lungs, I ain't do this shit. I didn't do it. Like I get that aspect of it, but the way it comes off and them releasing the text messages between her, like if it's going to be a civil case, let it play out in court. Don't bring it to public attention. It makes it look bad. And he already looks bad because you can't dispute the fact that he got kinks. And look, got kinks, cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do your thing. What's bad to me.
If it's consensual, then there's no problem.
There's no problem. What's bad to me is I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get graphic. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday and I said, I have never made a good decision when my dick has made the decision. There has never been not one good decision that my dick has made for me.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah. Well, yes.
I am about to be 45 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to a friend this morning because we were talking about the Shannon Sharpe thing. And I was like, 35 years old is my youngest that I could date. Because after that, it gets real spooky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This man is in his mid-50s. She was 19. And if you look at pictures of her, she looks like a little girl.
Yeah. And as far as I know, like this relationship was 2 years ago?
No, it started in 2023, but they were still carrying on in January.
Right. So my point is he was quite old.
Yeah.
In comparison to her. So it's kind of one of those things of like, what is a 19-year-old doing? He was like, what, 54, 53, 54 at the time?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Okay.
And my thing is this too. My man is rich, right? He got bread because he's all over the place. Got about to sign $100 million deal for his podcast. And that's just one of his jobs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever happened to getting yourself a call girl or getting an escort service? If you got kink, you know, they got that. I had one of my female friends, and I don't know why she asked me. One of my female friends said, hey, I got to ask you something. Can I call you? And I was like, look, anytime you call me, I know it's some bullshit, but okay, give me a call. And she called me and she was like, hey, do you know of like any DS or BDSM or dominatrix groups that I could join? And I said, why would you think that I would have that information?
She said, hey, you look like the type.
No, I was like, why do you think I would have had that type of information? Like, no, I don't. She was like, oh, because I know you like interview sex workers and stuff like that. I was like,
okay, yeah, that might be, yeah. For
I'm not
you might have friends in the biz, and can make some calls and figure out some things.
I was like, no, I can't help you. And I was like,
I think you might actually be able to, though.
Could I make some calls? Yeah, I don't want to make those uncomfortable calls. I'm not going to do that. That's not my relationship with those people. And that would make it weird in that aspect. And I was just like, yo, we're in our 40s. Isn't it a little late in the game to be getting into this? Like, this seems like this is something that you should try when you was younger.
No, it's never too late to explore your sexual side. I don't think we should put an age on that. And as long as things are consensual,
right?
Like there's really no problem. And you're right, there are sex workers who specialize in certain kinks, like, and it's Las Vegas, I'm sure.
Right.
Sure.
It's legal there in certain parts of Vegas. Why didn't he just go? So he gets in a relationship with this 19-year-old.
Right. Which is already like, okay.
Problematic. Sir. And I tend to believe her when she says certain aspects about feeling manipulated and bullied because he's a hulking of a man, number one.
Yeah, it's a large man, yes.
A large man. He's older. He has all the money.
And fame. And when you add money plus fame, it equals power.
Right. So he's dictating how the relationship goes. And I'll never forget my friend explaining to me how sometimes she was in situations where she would just go along with situations, like in a man's home or something like that, because she never knew how the man was going to react. Now, just imagine that man is 6'4", 260 pounds, and shredded, and a former All-Pro Hall of Fame football player.
Yeah.
Tony Busby got some ish about him too. He's always around these cases, and it always seems like he's trying to get money. Because my thing is, if it happened in January 2025 and you're suing him civilly, shouldn't there also be a criminal case as well?
Yeah, it kind of, because I mean, I don't know the statute of limitations in Las Vegas.
20 years.
For sexual assault?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm confused why there isn't a criminal case. If you've got the evidence to present during discovery that would prove your case, I don't know why you wouldn't file criminal charges also, because I would want not just for him to pay financially, but if these allegations are in fact true and they have the evidence to prove it, I mean, I would want him to be held responsible criminally. But again, I mean, it's up to Jane Doe whether she wants to file those charges. According to Busby, Sharpe offered her $10 million to settle her case, which she rejected.
Yeah. So there's been, I was watching an interview with a lawyer, because a lot of people have said, well, I mean, he offered 10 million, so that means he automatically did it. And there's a formula for paying settlements, something like that. It's the lawyers could come to Sharpe and say, look, there's a 10% chance that you're going to lose this case. Okay, 10% chance. So what's 10% of 50 million? That'd be 5 million, right?
Yeah.
Not including lawyer fees, which are automatically going to be around $8 million for a case like this, right? So you offer to settle if you go to trial, right? $8 million if you go to trial. So you offer to settle for 10 million because you know at the very least it's a high probability that you're going to be out 13 million. So you offer the 10 million up front so that you up 3 million. So just because he was willing to settle for $10 million, which is a lot of money, by the way, that doesn't mean that that he's acknowledging guilt.
Yeah, likely the stipulation would be this, there would be some sort of language in there where this is not an admission of guilt.
Yeah. Uh,
It's
uh,
just, if he can avoid the bad publicity, he seems very open to releasing whatever he needs to release to prove that he is not to prove that these allegations are false. So, but you want to avoid such a public, you know, view of like very private situations.
does he though?
I don't know, because this is also the same dude that went live by quote unquote accident, even though it's very difficult to just go live. Like, there are several buttons you have to push. You don't just it's not like a butt dial. Like, you can't just go live by accident. You just can't.
A butt dial while he's having sex. Come on now. That pun was intended.
I mean, it wasn't, but if it's there, have at it.
He's also a spokesman for one of those male enhancement pills. It's not Blue Chew, is Rio or something like that. Like, he's a huge spokesman for that.
Mhm.
What also needs to be talked about is there is a video recording
Mhm.
of what the plaintiff says is the sexual assault.
Yeah.
He's come out and said, and they offered to show in the settlement agreement when they were mediating, they offered to show the video.
Mhm.
And he denied to look at the video. They're claiming that the video is heavily edited. And I was like, how's it heavily edited if you haven't even looked at it? That doesn't make any sense to me.
You're right.
And that they were role playing, and that doesn't mean that it was sexual assault. Now, all those things could be true. At the very least, once again, I will say, this is a bad look.
Yeah, it's not great.
Join the conversation and follow the Unsolicited Perspectives podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your audio podcasts.